there's a gap there that exists. You just got to look at these last two games that they played against Seattle. You can't score a touchdown. I know guys are hurt and they're out, but there's a gap there. And the Rams seem to overcome all their injuries. Now, Stafford stayed healthy the whole year, but they lost Devontae Adams. They lost Tyler Higbee. They've lost guys throughout the year. And somehow, here they are. They're probably better in the front office right now.
What you saw and your biggest takeaway last Saturday night in Seattle was for you, Baldy?
Number one ranked defense in football. And it's not an accident. I mean, they haven't scored a touchdown against Seattle in 8 quarters, right? So that's the problem is the Seattle's defense, the way it's constructed. And this is the same thing Mike McDonald did with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, it takes talent, but the way that he teaches it, it forces the quarterback to hold the ball. There isn't open places to go with it. They sit on top of these routes, and it really makes the quarterback second guess himself. And they should have won a Super Bowl 2 years ago, and that's why John Harbaugh is in there. They had the best defense. They led the league in sacks. They led the league in takeaways. They're doing the same thing now. And I felt like offensively, they ran the ball a little bit better than they did, week 18. But really, they couldn't get the ball over the top. And that's the problem. You can't get big plays against their defense. They're just sitting back in this cover 2 shell, but way more than just that. The way that they route read, the way they match you up, like it's just different than everybody else. And honestly, I know we're going to get to this, but if you're looking for a defensive coordinator, like I would be looking inside that Seattle staff. Like you have to look at Carl Scott, who coached at Alabama with Nick, who's been there with Mike McDonald. You got to look at these guys and go, this is what I want. It's like when Bill Walsh was in San Francisco, guys, and everybody wanted a piece of that offense. It's like what Brian Flores started teaching in Miami and took to Minnesota. Now everybody wants a piece of that. Like there's certain trends that pass through this league where you go, that's what I want. That's the defense I want to play. Now, to your point, I heard you talking about all the holes they have. They have plenty. But, that's a difficult defense to pierce. The Rams will have a little better chance because they have Stafford and McVay and 2 elite receivers, and they've seen it, and Matt's seen it all. But he knows he's going to have to hold it at some point. And can the protection hold up so he can decipher where to go with the ball?
Having seen Seattle at Levi's in person, watching the game back, this is week 18, then, really studying their roster and what they've done, and then going up to Seattle, sitting in the stands, watching them again. Baldy, I believe this Seahawks team right now would have beaten a fully healthy Niner team, and it's not close. That's honestly how I feel. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, I do. Winning does this to teams, but being around that team, there's a camaraderie that is just rare. Like everybody on the outside can say Sam Darnold could be a weakness, could be an issue because of the turnovers. There's not a guy on that team that doesn't believe they're only there because of Sam. Like they don't look at weaknesses. They just look at what the team needs to do to overcome any weaknesses they might have. And that's what they do. But they have a camaraderie that is rare. And, I remember talking to Graves-Zable, the left guard, and he was telling me that he was really struggling the first week of training camp, first 2 weeks. And Leonard Williams was eating him up. And Leonard went and talked to the kid, and just, not just threw his arm around him, told him what he could do to be better and how to get better and what he needs to do to take this away. And Zable's like so grateful. And then you look at the championship game last weekend, and Graves-Zable's telling Leonard Williams, like, look, the center is sliding to you. You got to take this route. And Leonard does and gets a sack. But that's the communication and a camaraderie. I know you all heard that soundbite, right? Because I see you shaking your head, Joe. But they have a rare chemistry. And, John Schneider deserves a lot of credit with how he put together the team and how Mike McDonald isn't, he's not a czar. He's just a thinking man's football coach. You can tell he's not this animated guy and he's like this hard note. Like they're a thinking man's team that doesn't beat themselves.
So I know personnel is a huge part of this, right? They've drafted 20 some odd impact players in the last 3 or 4 years, Seattle, and the Niners have not. If you were to boil it down very very mundane. Why have the Niners failed to move the ball into the red zone, let alone into the end zone against the Seahawks in the last two matchups?
Well, they're not getting explosive plays. I mean, nobody's moving the ball in this league consistently without explosive plays. The Niners aren't getting those. They're not giving them to you. And that's one of the reasons why they're number one ranked team. Now, you can say, okay, let's just chip away McCaffrey on first down. Let's get 4. Let's chip away. We'll throw it to Juice in the flat. We'll get 4. We'll be in a third down manageable situation. All right, that gets you a first down if you do it. Can you consistently do that against them? You're going to get negative plays. They're going to tackle you for losses. You're going to get behind the sticks at some point. They're going to make you throw the ball away and get to the next down. Now you've got 3 downs to get a first down instead of 4 or 2 instead of you're going to lose a down. And so they constantly are putting you in these situations, and then you can't overcome it with what San Francisco loves is those layered throws over the middle of the field for 25 yards. Like they're taking that away.
Baldy, when Bill Walsh was struggling against the New York Giants and Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick's defense, they drafted Steve Wallace and Guy McIntyre prior to that, specifically to offset what that New York Giants front was doing. If you were to build a hierarchy looking at the 49ers right now on offense, what is the number one need and what comes after that?
You should always be looking to upgrade your offensive line, always. So, Trent is a great player. He's not going to go on forever. But everybody around him, you can look at it and go, I think Pooney's a good player. I think the center and left guard can be upgraded. I just think it can. It's interesting. If you just compare Seattle, San Francisco, which is what you should do. Seattle's the champion, and they're the team to beat. What do? Well, Jalen Sundell, Graves-Zable, North Dakota State. They went and got just tough guys that are very, very mobile and can move the line of scrimmage and can get to the second level. They're better at those two positions than the 49ers are. That's just one example. But, you've got Christian McCaffrey. I don't know. He's got 450 touches. How good is he going to be next year? At some point, you can't go feeding Christian McCaffrey 25 times a game. You can't keep doing it and expecting elite results. He had one 40-yard run this year at the end of the season. But the explosive runs aren't there. Are they going to be there next year after 450 touches? Probably not.
Their fastest player, the player that peaked out the fastest miles per hour this year was their linebacker.
The only guy to go over 20 miles per hour. The
only guy to go over 20 miles an hour was D. Winters on a pick 6, Baldy. And we all understand that, this version of Christian McCaffrey wasn't the same as a couple of years ago with just the burst. He still had an incredible season. Yeah. I mean, I wake up this morning, the guy's nominated for Offensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, and MVP. Yeah. It was an incredible season. But they just have no speed, and that was another part of performance for me, Baldy. Not only the speed, but the lack of just physicality. They just got out-hit. And when the 49ers were at their best,
But look at the first play of the game. Rashid Shahid goes the distance, right?
Oh, my God.
Jordan James.
Rashid Shahid, first of all, he could be the nicest kid in the world. You can't get the smile off his face. He's a sweet, sweet kid. And I don't mean that in any other way, but he's just – if he was in your office, if he was in with you guys right now, you go, this is a great kid. You can't help but like him. And I asked him a couple weeks ago, I go, how fast are you, Rashid? He goes, I'm the fastest player in the league. I go, but I heard in New Orleans there's a guy that's faster. He goes, yeah, I know people say that. He's not fast. But it was interesting, even on that play, they don't, most teams, Joe, put 2 guys back to return the kickoff, right? Most teams, except Seattle. They just put 1 guy back there. They only want 1 guy touching the ball, Rashid Shahid. They made that trade for that kid at the trade deadline. He's helped them win games, big time. So, he basically outscored the 49ers on the first play of the game, with that touchdown. So they've got speed. That's my point, is they added Rashid Shahid, a speed element. It opens up things for Jackson Smith and Jigba, maybe the best route runner in the league. It opens up things for A.J. Barner at tight end. The 49ers, to your point, they don't have a guy like that. Well, they can just take the time. Juwan Jennings is good. And DeMarcus Robinson found a home. and, all these things, but they don't have that element on their team.
How big is the gap currently between those two teams and where the Niners are at right now?
I think it's pretty severe, a gap. I think severe is probably a strong word. There's a gap there that exists. Look, you just got to look at these last two games that they played against Seattle. You can't score a touchdown. I know guys are hurt and they're out, and if you say, okay, if we're fully healthy, we're probably going to score a touchdown at least. But there's a gap there, and the Rams seem to overcome all their injuries. Now, Stafford stayed healthy the whole year, but they lost Devontae Adams. They lost Tyler Higbee. They lost Alaric Jackson. They lost, their right tackle. They've lost guys. They lost Emmanuel Forbes in a game. They've lost guys throughout the year, and here they are, going into Chicago now. They had to go to overtime, but they've lost guys all year long, and somehow here they are. And so they don't use that as any kind of an excuse. It helps that the quarterback is largely healthy, but they're not spending first-round picks on any offensive linemen. No. They're drafting and hitting with Jordan Whittington in the 6th round. They're constantly Puka in the 5th round. They're constantly hitting on their late-round picks and guys coming in. Kobie Turner was a 3rd-round pick. Name a defense tackle has more sacks than he does the last 3 years. Like they're getting Nate Lamb in for nothing in free agency. Like they're probably better in the front office right now with what they're doing.
That was my question. Where's the gap bigger right now? We have a vacant DC spot. We know what Kyle does on offense. Is the gap between the Niners and these two teams more in the front office? Because that's where I believe it is than it is in schematics.
Well, they're replacing coaches every year. The 49ers got to replace Saleh. But the 49ers have lost defensive coordinator Brandon Staley. They've lost everybody. They have the next guy up waiting. Shula's probably going to get real good coaching consideration with what he's doing defensively, with what he's had to work with. But they've hit on every single draft pick. Jared Verse, Kobie Turner, Byron Young, Josiah Stewart. All through this whole thing, everyone has been, and they only had one first-round pick, and they struck gold with Jared Verse. He's a great player, and he stays healthy. And so the gap is in the coaching and how they're developing coaches and in the front office. And that's not a knock on John Lynch or anything. They've done well. Rams have done better.